This is part 2 on our series on the nature of reality, in which we look at reality from 3 unique perspectives, those perspectives being physics, philosophy, and theology. And the reason I'm excited about these perspectives is there's a surprisingly beautiful correlation between the views that are emerging from all these fields. And that correlation allows us to bring together contrasts and find a harmony between them, and even allow these different disciplines to enrich one another through their insights. And today we're going to look at physics, and you don't have to be scared if you haven't studied physics. I'm not a physicist, but I can read and I can appreciate what people who have dedicated their lives to this discipline have written and have said. One of the things that I've done as well is I've put a link to a talk by Dr. David Tong on quantum field theory in the description of this video on our YouTube channel. I will also put a link to Ian McGilchrist's book called The Matter with Things. It's actually a 2-volume series. And what that is particularly good for is merging these different disciplines. And he also goes a bit into quantum field theory, etc. So if you want to have a deeper look, that video is very easy to understand by a general audience. It's entertaining, informative, so please have a look at it. Also, if you haven't had a look at part 1 of this series, please do so. So today the perspective is physics and quantum field theory in particular. Now, you might have, just like me, have heard some spiritual teachers use the word quantum that would make any physicist cringe as to what they had, the fantastic conclusions they draw from a few isolated quotations. I hope not to stray too far from what physicists themselves have said. And so I'm going to look at a lot of quotations from a variety of physicists. And the aim is this, to show you that at the heart of our reality, even from a physicist's perspective, are relational movements. The old idea that our world consists of small material bits that interact upon one another externally in mechanical ways, and therefore we can predict what will happen through just applying natural laws to those interactions. That idea has been invalidated, and it's been replaced by the most successful theory within physics called quantum field theory, that basically says that there are no fundamental bits of matter or particles as the building blocks of our world. Rather, what is fundamental are waves, or they call it fields. You can think of an ocean. And the ocean, within the ocean, you might distinguish waves, but those waves would have no existence apart from their context being part of the ocean. Similarly, yes, you can distinguish many things within our natural world, but on a fundamental level, We are just waves within the ocean. We are truly all sharing a common ground of being. This is not theology. This is what physicists have concluded. Let me start with some quotations. This is a quotation from Tom, whose video is in the description. And he's responding to the fact that physicists routinely still teach that the building blocks of nature are discrete particles, such as electrons or quarks. And he explicitly says, this is a lie. The building blocks of our theories are not particles, but fields, continuous, fluid-like objects spread throughout space. In another place, he says, no matter how closely you zoom in, you will not find irreducible building blocks. At the fundamental level, is nature discrete or continuous? I see no evidence whatsoever for discreteness. All the discreteness we see in the world is something that emerges from an underlying continuum. Now, the implications, I think, is profound, because relationships between fields are not the kind of mechanical relationships that the materialistic reductionist had in view. See, within that reductionist view, we just have objects acting on one another externally, and there's no internal world. But within quantum field theory, there's, and what made quantum such a disruptive understanding within the world is that it seems to leave room for possibilities. In other words, things that cannot be predicted. And so famously, Heisenberg formulated a principle of uncertainty, which says the more closely you measure one aspect of a particle, the less you will know about another aspect of that particle. And the reason we cannot measure all aspects of a quantum or a particle accurately is not because our measuring devices need to be refined, or we just don't have all the knowledge we need, but at the fundamental level, possibilities are part of our reality. And even the smallest parts, discreteness within these waves, have a responsiveness to possibility. That implies that there's a form of intelligence, a form of decision making. Decision means to cut away. Incision, a decision means I cut away some possibilities and I retain another possibility. And this is what continuously happens within nature. Some possibilities are actualized and others are cut away. If all of nature is saturated with possibilities, and if decisions is continually being made, it speaks of an internal reality, an internal experiential decision-making process that happens in all of reality. Let me give some more quotations. This is from a mathematician, Poincare. He stresses that science must tell us something of reality, but what it teaches us is not to think that we are reaching the things themselves, but only the relationship between things. And outside of these relationships, there is no knowable reality. Let me continue while I've got my quotation page up here. This is a biophysicist, Don Mukuleki. I hope I pronounced his name right. He says, it isn't the atoms and molecules that are at the heart core of reality. It is the relationships between them. And the relationships between them and things called processes, which are at the core of the real world. Can you see a theme developing? This idea of a world that is alive, a world that is, sorry, let me just get back to that screen. A world that is alive with relational movements. And these relational movements are not just mechanical. They are not just materialistic. In fact, in the video on quantum field theory, I think at minute 24 or so, he puts up a graphic of a quantum field. And basically what they've done is they've emptied a space of all material particles, and he basically says this is a picture of nothing. So he uses that word with poetic license, because when they then model this field within a space that has no material components within it, you can quite clearly see that it is alive. It is not nothing in the absolute sense, that there's this continual, you'll see it on the video, this continual relational movements within this wave. Let me continue with a few more quotations. Okay. This is Frank Wilczek. He's a physicist and mathematician, and was also a Nobel laureate and professor of physics at MIT. He writes, the core theory, which summarizes our best current understanding of fundamental processes, is formulated in terms of quantum fields. What we take to be particles appear as secondary consequences. They are localized disturbances in the primary entities, which are fields. Now, I've already hinted at the fact that these relational movements implies a form of intelligence, implies a form of consciousness. Now, you might wonder, what does physics have to do with consciousness? And this is one of those amazing things that has happened, is that in quantum field theory, they were unable to formulate that whole theory without reference to consciousness. So physics is kind of coming to a point where it realizes that there is more than what we traditionally thought of as physical reality. There's a form of consciousness that is a fundamental part of our natural world, of reality. And without it, we cannot understand our world fully. Now, let me give you some quotations from actual scientists. For instance, the neuroscientists Ramachandran and Colin Blakemore conclude that consciousness, like gravity, mass, and charge, may be one of the irreducible properties of the universe, for which no further account is possible. And then the Bohr, he writes, in our description of nature, the purpose is not to disclose the real essence of the phenomena, but only to track down, as far as is possible, relations between them and the manifold aspects of our experience. So this is physicists, scientists coming to the conclusion that the deeper we peer into the nature of reality, the less physical, material stuff, particles we see, the more wave-like, fluid-like, consciousness-like qualities come into focus. Let me do a few more quotations before I bring it to a conclusion. This is a scientist called Strawson. It's plain that the human science of physics can't fully characterize the nature of concrete reality, even in principle. On many matters, such as experience, physics is simply silent. For me, it's beautiful that physicists are realizing that if we can push our discipline as far as it can be, but there is more to our world than traditional physics. So I'm going to read something because it's very relevant. This is Whitehead, Alfred North Whitehead, which is a philosopher, not a physicist, but I'll link it up. He thought that the sharp division between mentality and nature has no ground in our fundamental observation, and we should conceive mental operations as among the factors which make up the constitution of nature. Then this is a physicist and mathematician, Eugene Wigner. He pointed out that it was not possible to formulate the laws of quantum mechanics in a fully consistent way without reference to consciousness. Carl from Weizsäcker went further and says, he's also a physicist, consciousness and matter are different aspects of the same reality. I'm going to hopefully end up with this quote, but this is from the very esteemed scientist Planck. As a physicist, and therefore as a man who has spent his whole life in the service of the most down-to-earth science, namely the exploration of matter, no one is going to take me for a starry-eyed dreamer. After all my exploration of the atom, then, let me tell you this, there is no matter as such. All matter arises and exists only by virtue of a force which sets the atomic particles oscillating and holds them together in that tiniest of solar systems, the atom. We must suppose behind this force a conscious, intelligent spirit. The spirit is the ultimate origin of matter. Wow. Okay, so there he kind of veers into a little bit of philosophy and theology. But if we're looking at the same reality, that is an inevitable consequence of our pursuit of reality, a pursuit of a deep appreciation for what it really is. One last quote, and then I'm going to bring the conclusion. And this is a statement from Sir James Jeans, a physicist, an astronomer and mathematician. And he writes this: the stream of knowledge is heading towards a non-mechanical reality. The universe begins to look more like a great thought than like a great machine. Mind no longer appears to be an accidental intruder into the realm of matter. We ought rather hail it as the creator and governor of the realm of matter. Isn't that beautiful? Heisenberg, this is one of his famous quotes. He said, "Not only is the universe stranger than we think, it is stranger than what we can think." What we observe is not nature itself, but nature exposed to our method of questioning. So, these are the conclusions that I draw from the comments of these and the studies of these physicists. The best of physics acknowledges that our reality consists of more than physical particles. Physics is a partial perspective, and both what we can know through physics and what we cannot know is conducive to a sense of awe. So my conclusions, I'm going to have 3 conclusions. Number 1, reality is relational, and these relations are not purely physical or mechanical. They have depth, involving an internal responsiveness to possibilities. This implies a universal experiential reality, underlying connection. We are part of a whole. There's life and intelligence in all of reality. The second conclusion that I draw from this is that having a sense of awe, a sense of the sacred, is it's not some old-fashioned religious superstition. It is the most valid and natural response we can have to the depth and the wonder of our world. And that sense of awe is shared by physicists, philosophers, and theologians, by people in all of these disciplines. The third conclusion I want to draw is that experiencing our world as a living entity rather than just stuff we can utilize changes the way we relate to our world. Everything has value, and its value is not only related to its utility, how I can use it for my own benefit. Rather, what I can do to benefit my world becomes a more significant question. Because this view of reality helps us understand that if I fulfill or benefit any other part of nature, I am busy benefiting myself as well. So that was part 2, the view from physics. In our next session, we're going to look at a very exciting perspective as well, and that is from the perspective of philosophy. And they are going to take these questions about how these relationships work to another level. Thank you, friends. See you next time. Bye. The World of Wonder program is a 6-month program in which you'll join myself, Andre, and Marianne on an adventure down a spiritual rabbit hole. We'll explore some of the most creative and inspiring perspectives on God, self, Scripture, and the world. And the goal is nothing less than intensifying and diversifying your experience. Consequently, we'll do more than just share information. Throughout the program, we'll help you develop new, fun, and practical habits that will be helpful during the course, but also enriching for your life beyond the program. We have limited spaces available. Registration is open right now, and we hope to send out the first preparatory information in December. The actual classes will begin on the 24th of January 2025. Our first course, The Creative Value of Your Perspective, explores the art of creating meaning. You know, we are constantly in the process of interpreting our world. Every text, every conversation, in fact, every experience requires interpretation. And there are better and worse ways of going about it. And so in that course, we're going to delve into new creative ways of forming meaning within your life. Having established that we can creatively participate in this meaning-making process, Course 2 will help develop one of the essential habits to access more of these possibilities of meaning. The Thunder of Silence course takes us through the actual practice of meditative silence. By Course 3, we will put these newfound skills into practice as we reinterpret some of the most fundamental stories concerning human origins. In the Human Genesis course, we'll draw from a variety of disciplines, biblical studies, theology, philosophy, and anthropology, to paint a whole new image of the events, the desires, and the relationships that made us human. However, the human story includes many mistakes and misinterpretations. Jesus offers a whole new interpretation of who God is, who we are, and demonstrates what relationship with God could mean. Mimesis in the Gospel of John, that is Course 4, shows us a whole new way of being human. And finally, we reinterpret God in the face of the invisible. That's the last course. Many have discovered a God that is bigger and more beautiful than their religions and traditions. How can our interpretation expand to accommodate more of this inexhaustible beauty? So please have a look at our website, mimesis.academy. I'll put a link in the description of this video or audio as well. And we hope you'll join us on this adventure. Bye.